Just a bit, but opening this up to a special guest joining us on the top of 8 p.m. this evening on NewsX is Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, senior leader of the BJP and Rajya Sabha MP. Dr. Swamy, what do you have to say about the drama that unfolded earlier in the day when maps were torn ostensibly by certain lawyers today, sir?
Well, I think a court is a place like in Parliament or in a public debate or a public meeting where we have to function on the basis of rules and arguments and law, and the performance of the Sunni Waqf Board lawyer Mr. Dhawan was extraordinarily rude and highly objectionable. The court itself said it was objectionable. And in the end, it was all hot hair. I mean, he was on a weak wicket throughout. But the strongest argument for the Hindus getting their way in Ram Temple was my argument, which is of fundamental rights. The other Hindu parties are talking about who is going to get the property. And in that, you have to rely on old documents in Urdu, in Persian, and so on. And there are two ways of translating into English, and there are all kinds of ambiguities. So my being detagged and sent to another court, in my opinion, as far as this part, it will now depend on the judge's interpretation of variations in documents and variation in translations and so on. And I would still say that the overwhelming weight of evidence is in favor of the Hindus. But in any case, if there is any middle ground, then I am always there. My petition will be there, which will take it to its final conclusion.
Right. Now, the Hindu side, Dr. Swamy, has argued that they have been able to establish ownership with documents, ownership on the basis of documents, something that the Muslim side has not been able to prove due to lack of documents supporting their claim. What do you have to say on that particular aspect or point?
Well, that's why I came in with this fundamental argument, which says that this is irrelevant, because under Article 300A, the government can take over any land in the public interest, and the courts cannot challenge that. This was actually brought in to finish off the zamindars in 1952, who were getting stay orders on all the land that was taken away from them. So I think the right way for the government to go now, if they find that these courts are just become playgrounds for lawyers, is outright nationalize the land and restore it to what it was. Even today I am saying that even if the Sunni Waqf Board wins the case, the government can nationalize the small amount of land which has been left over. Otherwise, the government has already nationalized 67.404 acres of the land. Now only 0.313 remains where the Babri Masjid stood. So in the end, the Hindus are going to win without doubt, because the laws are like that, and they have no leg to stand on, the Sunni Waqf Board. But there can be an interregnum because of my non-presence in the case.
Now, the Muslim side counsel Rajiv Dhawan, in fact, has argued, sir, that Hindus have unfairly categorized only Babur as an invader. He even said that Aryans were invaders. How do you react to that assertion made by the Muslim side lawyer?
Well, see, this is the problem with the lawyers. When they want to argue, they don't stick to the focus. The focus is that this is a special temple where Ram was born. Ram was born nowhere else. There is no other temple which is Ram Janmabhoomi. And there Mr. Babur had come. There is plenty of evidence, and that he sent his Commander Mir Baki. On that there is no doubt. Yes, in Portugal, in Goa, the Portuguese have demolished a lot of temples, but we don't make an issue of it because we can rebuild it. In the case of Somnath, Ghazni came several times and butchered people also. So in order to establish that free India has come, Sardar Patel and Rajendra Prasad and Munshi and others decided that they will rebuild the temple. So out of ruins, they built a beautiful temple in Somnath. So these are special temples, and it is also, we have these special Jyotirlingas, you see, for Shiva, where there are about 12 of them where they are special. So those, if they are touched, we will certainly agitate. But there are 40,000 temples were destroyed by Taimur, by Nazir Shah, by Abdali, all that. Well, I mean, we will rebuild them, but we are not agitating on it. And we even let the Muslims have it. In fact, only 3 are being identified as what we will get back. One was Ram temple, the other is Krishna temple in Mathura, and the Kashi Vishwanath temple.
In fact, on the other hand, you know, the Muslim side has also asked for reconstruction of the Babri Mosque today. Is that legally possible in your wisdom, Dr. Swamy?
Yeah, let them. It's for the judges to decide. It would, in a title suit, this is a material question. Whether now, if you are going to give me the title, then please rebuild my masjid, because your people, the people of India destroyed it.
Do you also believe that the Chief Justice of India, Ranjan Gogoi, has voiced the view of every Indian when he said enough is enough in court today? After all, it has been 134 years already, Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, with no resolution to this dispute. Do you believe today, when Ranjan Gogoi actually told the court enough is enough, that is voicing the view of all Indians' view on this particular case of the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid dispute, which has, you know, been on and on for years?
Yes, the real closure will come on the judgment. If it is like the Allahabad High Court judgment, then there is no closure. Because they must give a judgment which is clear and implementable. And it can't be a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Now, the Uttar Pradesh government has taken several preventive measures, you know, with law and order, of course, in mind. There has been a clampdown in the entire district of Ayodhya. A lot of measures have been put in place for security reasons. Do you think there is a possibility of emotions flaring up, sir, after the judgment is pronounced, whichever way it may go? As you're saying, you know, you want a certain judgment. There may be others who want a different judgment. Closure, at the end of the day, will happen perhaps if the judgment goes one particular way for that party only. But the other parties will obviously be upset, and that will not be closure for them. In that view, then, do you believe that there is a real possibility of emotions flaring up after the judgment is pronounced by the court, whenever it does happen, but hopefully before the retirement of Chief Justice of India, Ranjan Gogoi?
No. I will say this, that if Babri Masjid is rebuilt, there will be from the Hindu side. But if the temple is built, there won't be, because most Muslims regard that, you know, masjid can be built anywhere, namaz can be read anywhere, including on the road and in a drawing room, in an aeroplane, etc. So we should not, when it comes to Ram's Janmabhoomi, if we lose in court, we should accept it. So I don't expect any difficulty if the judgment goes in favor of the Hindus.
Now, do you think that the mediation report that was submitted today is worth anything after one of the parties, as reports claim, has walked out of the process? You know, at the end of the day, there has been enough time, Dr. Swamy, given for mediation during the trial. It obviously has not reaped or yielded any dividends. There are reports that the Sunni Waqf Board is willing to give up its claims on the basis of certain conditions. What about the mediation report that was submitted today in court? Is that worth anything for you?
No, the report is not worth anything. When I was law minister in 1991, Chandrasekhar asked me to discuss with Shahabuddin and produce a mediation report. We did, but the others didn't agree. Then Narasimha Rao had me. He was consulting me all the time and finally wrote me a letter of thanks for helping him, but nothing came out of it. In the meantime, the masjid got demolished. Then when I appeared before K.R. Singh for my writ petition, he said, why don't you do a mediation? I did. And I reported what I've known since 1991. The Muslim leadership feels that if they settle and for a wire media, then they will be suspect by the hardliners to have sold out. So they privately told me, see, it's easier for us to accept a judgment against us and then work out a compromise. So that's why a compromise will never take place.
Okay. And, finally, do you believe that the onus will be on the political leadership, Dr. Swamy, on both sides of the spectrum to ensure that emotions do not flare up? You were saying earlier that you do not believe that there will be emotions flaring up if the verdict goes in the favor of the Hindu side, but not everyone may be in agreement with that sentiment of yours. Is the onus now and is the responsibility on political parties from all sides to ensure that emotions do not flare up, to ensure that there is no law and order problem, to ensure that there is no politicization of the verdict? There has in any case been so much politicization of the issue for so many years, and to ensure that there is no untoward situation which may arise post the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid verdict when it's finally out.
Well, you see, we are not going to do any appeasement of anybody. But we will defend all Indian citizens, irrespective of their religion. And we will explain that this is the decision of the court. It was not a decision of the government. It could have been a decision of the government by nationalizing the land, but the government chose not to do it. And so they now have saying that, see, we had an option, but we didn't exercise it, we let the court decide. I think it's not going to be difficult to maintain law and order on this Ram Temple issue.
And the court's time.
Okay. Sree Iyer, in fact, we also have Sree Iyer, author, joining us on the broadcast at this point. Yes, Mr. Iyer, you have a point to make. Mr. Iyer, I think, is in disagreement with Anup George Chaudhary's position.
What I wanted to say was perhaps the Supreme Court wanted to end this matter once and for all, and instead of having just one judge hear this case, had the full bench. Because in the Indian legal system, you can always appeal to a full bench, supposing one judge disagrees with the order. So perhaps the Supreme Court felt that this has been dragged on for too long, and therefore they constituted a bench to hear this. Because after this, there is nothing left. Everybody has to accept the verdict and move on. And I think India needs to move on. I mean, this has become like a soap opera, never ending. And I'm really hopeful that with this, the country will move forward and start thinking about matters that really affect the day-to-day life of people.
Mohammad Saki Khan Rathore, yes, Sree Iyer wanting to come in.
I think this case is an excellent example for the need for judicial reforms, in the sense that the Supreme Court is sitting on thousands of cases and it has to devote 40 days for this case. What I would like to see is the Supreme Court put some restriction saying that one can only argue for 20 minutes, 30 minutes on one side, and that's it. And they have to prepare their briefs ahead of time and submit it to the judges. Therefore, the judges will have time to go through it. And even before this, one further step before even this is the Supreme Court can decide whether a case has merit or not. I mean, this has taken far too long, and this could be an example that this court can use to say, look, we need to start cleaning up some of these cases, and we cannot give an unlimited amount of time for somebody who keeps coming back to the same thing again and again, raises frivolous objections. I'm talking about one individual who was representing one side in this. I don't want to take names, but the whole country knows who it is. So it is time that the court starts saying that, look, there is only so much time you can have to argue your case. I really hope
Thank you.